Samsung Galaxy S23 vs. Google Pixel 7. Which phone is better for you? Whenever new phones are released, the majority of attention is reserved for the flagship, high-end models, like the iPhone 14 Pro Max, Pixel 7 Pro or Galaxy S23 Ultra. And rightfully so. That's where most of the new features and innovation are found. However, the more affordable and almost as capable entry-level models, such as Samsung's $799 Galaxy S23 and Google's $599 Pixel 7 are definitely worth considering. Not only do you get almost the same experience in a smaller overall package, but it's a decision that will save you hundreds of dollars. But which affordable Android flagship is better for you? I've spent some time testing both the S23 and Pixel 7 in order to figure out just that. Traditional design versus a refreshing approach. I've been saying it for years, smartphones are boring, particularly when it comes to the overall design. There are only so many changes and tweaks you can make to a rectangular slab of glass, and Samsung's Galaxy S23 and Google's Pixel 7 are no exception. However, Google's design approach for its smartphones has changed over the last few years, bringing with it unique colors and a slightly, albeit still rectangular, look to the phone's overall design. I'll just say it, the Galaxy S23 looks like an iPhone 14, especially when the screen's off and it's laying flat on a desk. With the Pixel 7, however, there's no mistaking that it's not an iPhone. It doesn't lay flat on a table, and is instead slightly angled thanks to the camera bar where the dual rear-facing cameras are housed. While the S23 is familiar, it's also a safe choice. I'm rather fond of the Pixel 7's different enough approach, especially the camera bar that just looks cool. Samsung has several color options for the S23, with 4 main colors available when you buy the phone through any retailer, and 2 Samsung.com specific colors. The complete list includes green, phantom black, lavender, cream, graphite and lime, with the latter 2 being the Samsung exclusive colors. Google currently has 3 color options for the Pixel 7, 2 of which, white and obsidian black, are, admittedly, boring. However, the lemongrass option, which has a light yellow tint to it, is a definite mood. There are some size differences between the S23 and Pixel 7 that are worth noting. The S23 has a 6.1-inch display, while the Pixel 7's screen is 6.3 inches. The difference in display size means the overall size of the phones varies as well. Of course, the S23 is slightly smaller and easier for those with smaller hands to maintain a grip. The Pixel 7 is bigger, but I found it to be just as usable with one hand, partly because of the camera bump that acts as a ledge that rests on top of my finger while holding the phone. Neither device is too big, especially when you compare them to the size of phones like the Pixel 7 Pro, S23 Ultra or iPhone 14 Pro Max. TLDR. Smartphones generally all look the same, and Samsung's Galaxy S23 is no exception. Google, on the other hand, continues to take a slightly different, if not odd, at times, approach that grows on you. Samsung's known for its superior displays, and for good reason. Not to say there's anything wrong with the Pixel 7's screen, but the screen on Samsung's Galaxy S23, and the rest of the S23 lineup, for that matter, looks downright stunning. The S23 has a 6.1-inch dynamic AMOLED 2X display, with a total resolution of 2340 x 1080, and a maximum refresh rate of 120 Hz. The Pixel 7's 6.3-inch OLED display has a max refresh rate of 90 Hz and a resolution of 2400 x 1080. On paper, the Pixel 7 has a minimal advantage in overall resolution, but that's due to the difference in display size. If you look at pixel density, which equates to the overall sharpness of a display, the S23's 425 pixels per inch narrowly beat out the Pixel 7's 416p, and odds are, you won't truly notice a difference without nitpicking. When playing Asphalt 9, for example, the game looks almost identical on the Pixel 7 and S23. However, the street lights and the background scenery are brighter and more saturated on the S23, leading to a more immersive experience as you race through each track. The difference in refresh rate between the S23 and Pixel 7 means that common tasks like scrolling through Instagram, a website or long email are going to look buttery smooth on the S23. That doesn't mean the same tasks on the Pixel 7 are going to stutter and look meaningfully worse. A 90Hz refresh rate is still very much a welcome feature, but the S23's screen has an effortless feel to it when scrolling. As is the case with the overall resolution, the differences in refresh rate come down to nitpicking the finer details of the overall experience. But where I think the S23's display outshines, literally, the Pixel 7 is when it comes to overall brightness, color saturation and refresh rate. I much prefer the overall look and feel of the S23's display in side-by-side comparisons with the Pixel 7. Colors seem to have that elusive pop to them that many find appealing. TLDR. The Galaxy S23's display edges out the Pixel 7's on brightness, handy for outdoor use, speed and overall visual appeal. That said, the Pixel 7's display isn't a negative by any means. Software is a big piece of this Android puzzle. If Samsung's Galaxy line has an Achilles heel, it's without a doubt the software experience. Out of the box, the S23 runs Android 13 with Samsung's proprietary One UI 5.1 skin that contains broad tweaks and customization over stock Android. That extra layer of software includes duplicative apps like Samsung's own gallery, internet messages, calendar and even a mail app, to name a few. The Pixel 7, however, currently runs Android 13 with Google's Pixel Launcher skin, which runs atop stock Android. But for all intents and purposes, the Pixel's operating system is as close to stock Android as you'll get on any Android-powered smartphone. You're not going to find multiples of the same apps, nor are you going to find a long list of extra apps and services from carriers and other partners on a Pixel phone. What's more, Google likes to use its Pixel phone lineup to launch new features, some of which are exclusive to the Pixel line. For instance, the Pixel's call screen feature remains a staple feature for Pixel phones, allowing you to answer and screen incoming calls using Google Assistant. Another call-specific feature will use Google Assistant to wait on hold for you whenever you call a business. A new feature that's limited to the Pixel 7 called Photo and Blur takes old blurry photos and fixes them. It's akin to Blackmagic, and it's limited to Google's latest phones, including the Pixel 7. This has happened with other features like Magic Eraser, which helps you remove unwanted objects and people from photos and was a Pixel exclusive feature since its launch in late 2021. But Google recently made it available to all Android and iPhone users who subscribe to Google One. Point being, Pixel users had access to the feature first. Given the choice, I'd pick Google's software experience over Samsung's every single time. TLDR. Samsung's phones are known for having excess software apps and features, while Google's Pixel line takes a more restrained approach. The Pixel is also the first crop of phones to receive major Android updates, serving as a playing ground of sorts for Google's latest apps and features. When it comes to the camera, they're almost equals. Almost. For years, Google's Pixel phones were arguably considered to be the best smartphone cameras money could buy. At the very least, it was the best camera setup on an Android phone. But then the Android maker became complacent, using the same hardware and software tricks without any significant overall gains. Since then, Samsung has confidently sat in the top spot. So, why the history lesson? Because you can't look at the spec sheet and immediately write off the Pixel 7's camera as inferior. The Galaxy S23 has 3 rear cameras. A 50-megapixel main, 12-megapixel ultra-wide and 10-megapixel telephoto that offers a 3x optical zoom, in addition to a 30x space zoom feature. The Pixel 7 has 2 rear-facing cameras. There's a 50 megapixel main camera and 12 megapixel ultra-wide camera. The main camera has an 8x super ray zoom feature that's similar to the space zoom feature of the S23, albeit at a lower amplification. Both phones are capable of capturing high-quality photos that you'd have no issues sharing across your social media accounts or privately in messages with family. Portrait mode photos on both phones do a good job of identifying the subject and adding depth to the photo. True to form, pictures taken with the Galaxy S23 appear slightly oversaturated, while photos from the Pixel 7 look more true to life, but at times, have a dull-looking palette. I'd wager that most people would pick a photo taken with the Galaxy S23 over the Pixel 7 based on the colors alone. However, the Pixel 7's camera app is slightly faster from the time it takes to launch the camera to snapping a photo, something parents with young children or pet owners will surely appreciate when it comes time to capture a special moment. One area where the S23 handily excels over the Pixel 7 is in its ability to zoom in on a subject at a long distance. With a 30x total zoom level on the S23, Samsung's offering handily beats the 8x zoom of the Pixel 7. Either zoom level isn't something you'll want to use on a regular basis to capture your most important photos, but it sure does come in handy when trying to capture a stage performance, be it of your favorite musician or your child's elementary school play. TLDR. The Galaxy S23 beats out the Pixel 7, but just barely. The S23's photos are arguably more appealing, and its space zoom feature gets you up close and personal.